Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode in the Bringing Light to the Darkness series. I'm Rebecca Rose, Series Blue, and I think we're in the number 12 of our series, and happy to be continuing on with this. Wondering how everybody's doing as we're moving through a kind of heated up times on our planet right now. And I even, before I was sitting down to record this just now, I was thinking, is there a point in me even talking about this stuff when, should I be talking about current events? But I also realized, contemplating that before I started, everybody who's speaking truth now, truth to power, and speaking about what's been going on in this planet for a really long time, in whatever vein, whatever piece of that, you want to contribute to, I think it's all in service of helping us remember who we are and what we came here to do and what we came here with alive inside of us, which is really helpful to the situation as it is right now on our planet. So much confusion and so much imprisonment, in a way, of our sovereign light, our truth, our beauty. It's all there, and we're just awakening it. And so hopefully this is a contribution of some kind to that as I continue to talk about things in the space program and beyond that. And also today talking about some elements of healing and bringing, as the title of the series suggests, bringing in light. So, and today I'm going to focus on Planet X, going into that a little bit more. In my last couple of interviews, I think I had kind of spoken more to some of the recent tidbits I've been getting, remembering about it ever so slowly but surely, and maybe bringing that all together. Sometimes in interviews, I can't really go into anything in depth. And here on the channel, I can really give some context and detail and more of the deeper meaning that to me, that's important. So, and I think I would start off, we'll start it off saying that I've had people write me and ask me if I'm still doing sessions, and that's all available on my website. Yes, absolutely. Doing intuitive work is my full-time job every week. So yeah, you can still book Akashic sessions and soul counseling sessions, coaching and inner child work, quantum healing, galactic attunements, and so on and so on and so on through the website. And yeah, thanks for asking about that. I know I'm reaching more and more people, and I appreciate all of the notes that people send me, and knowing that I've helped a few people, that this is somehow, I think, useful not to just my own journey, but maybe to something a little bit bigger than myself. That's my hope. So before we go into Planet X, I think I'll talk about mentioned this briefly. I think it was the Journey to Truth interview, my latest one with Tyler and Aaron, about this field of memory that I keep getting blips of these places in the solar system that don't have place names that we recognize. And I realized that I would call them substations or orbital substation stations, space stations that are in orbit in far out places, that they're very numerous, and they're, I would say, inconspicuous. And they have, the funny thing is that they have coordinates rather than a name. Like, we recognize planet names, we know the moon, Earth, Mars, Saturn, Venus, whatever it may be. We can locate that in our minds, but as far as something that has a numerical value or numerical coordinate, or alphanumeric number letter system to identify its position in the solar system, now those are harder to place in my memory when they come up. So understandably, I'm having some challenges, but that's been, this has been a long time coming in having these parts of the memory come back. And it's slow. I don't have all the pieces of this, but it's kind of exciting because I've been like, where was I? What was I doing? There's a bunch of missions of like field bases that I was at, and what were we doing? And what I noticed there, what I remembered very clearly, and this is just in the past couple of weeks, it reminds me of I mean, it reminds me of a fire lookout sort of position, but I'll say why in a minute. Just to describe briefly this, it's like an observation outpost or a viewing, it feels like a viewing platform, where we're watching, we and others, and it's a small group. It's not heavily staffed, but we're watching what's happening and looking for XYZ invaders, what have you, errant moments in the atmosphere, if you like. And the analog with the fire lookout, you know, the old style Forest Service fire lookouts where you sit in the forest way up high in a little cabin, and it's, you know, you're looking for fire basically, and it's like 99.9% of the time you probably have nothing to do, and yet in that one, you know, fraction of a percentage where there's some shit happening, you better have your shit really together and be totally precise and on point and not screw up in how you respond to that. You better not be asleep, you know, when the moment comes when you need to act. So watching, you know, just observing, and in communication with a lot of different other places, so relaying information back. But as yet, I don't want to say for sure, I can't say for sure who I'm actually working for, but these are the beginnings. And I remember it's sort of a kinder memory because I do recall having, like I said, a lot of downtime and being among, I want to say, friendly others and humans. So this is to be continued, but just to say it's something that I'm definitely with right now. And my life is so busy that whenever anything new is coming in the late night streams of information that seem to come in right before bed, that's when it's always happening, usually, or in my morning meditations. You know, I'm just grateful for that. You know, this will be, I'll be mining this stuff until I'm elderly and on my way out of this body. So, you know, I've questioned before too, like, should I wait until I have everything neat and tidy together and every memory from all these years out there? I'm not sure that's ever going to happen. I might be dead before that happens. You know what I mean? Like, so it's important that I just keep going and keep relaying what I do know, what I do remember, and how I'm putting the pieces of that together in context and connecting the dots. So let's go into the Planet X thing. I wanted to clarify, I was owned by the Draco out there, which in itself is like, no words, you know, like, see, there's no words. I just don't even know how to describe that. But just first off, nuts and bolts, I would say Planet X, as far as I know, is not what people call Nibiru, and not in my memories. This came back as Planet X, and that's all I have to give you on it. I did look back I found some older blog posts by Cobra, where he mentions this Planet X after sometime in the 90s being controlled by light forces. And interestingly, he does mention that this is not the same as the fabled and notorious Nibiru. So anyway, I just want to make that clarification because sometimes that comes up in interviews, and I want to be clear that, to my knowledge, this is not that. Planet X is what NASA might call the hypothetical extra planet beyond the Kuiper Belt, far beyond the Kuiper Belt. Like, so far, my mind can't really even conceive of it. It's mind-blowing. It's totally mind-blowing. Like, if you think about, so one astronomical unit is the measurement between the sun and the earth. That's something we can conceive of. But think about a couple hundred of those astronomical units or those distances. What happens to your mind? Like, it kind of gets all gooey and you kind of can't hold it. Not in the 3D conceptual mind. It kind of, it's so big. Anyway, back to being owned by the Draco. So we'll kind of tease this apart. And some of this I might be repeating from previous, another video I did on this kind of long back, but there's other things to add. So I feel like, and I see this now, that the Draco kind of had their grip on me. They had me tagged from the time I came in, really. And this has very much to do with the reptilian, what I believe is a Draco genetic inside my mother's family, coming down through ritual abuse. I think that gave them a special, like, you know, I think ownership in a way early on. That's kind of hard to say. And in other videos, I've talked about how that DNA has been transformed, which is very cool, very uplifting. Anyway, that's been, I think this was all going to happen just like this, with them eyeing me. And, you know, I was interacting with them at the Dark Fleet base on the moon. Not going into that, but just to say that these periods of interaction with them started really when I was quite little. And then finally, at the sort of toward the end of my whole time and back experience, 20 and back, the Draco owned me. And this, I would say that this was out on Planet X. Let's get into that. This is the Draco Empire. This is not like Dark Fleet, Luftwaffe. I do recall some Germans being brought out there, but they were once in a while guests. They were tokens. They were nothing. They had no power. They had like flies on the wall, nothing. So, and different too, a different sort of feeling with these Draco on Planet X. They were so powerful. They were so powerful. And at the Darfleet base on the moon, where I was first sent when I was quite small, didn't quite have that same feeling of deeply potent, but when you get them all together, and they're the top dog really anywhere. But on the moon, there were Germans and Greys involved there. But this is a whole nother ball game, and it's ups the ante quite a lot. And largely what I recall there is patrolling in a craft, protecting at the time the Draco had, and this would have been, I mean, I was taken in 1982. If we count in Earth years, this would have been in the 90s sometime, but you know, time is very different off of Earth, and particularly what happens to time when it's a couple hundred astronomical units of distance away from the sun. Things really start to fall apart in linear space-time, and how we reckon it and how we measure it. Anyway, I haven't solved all those riddles by any means. The riddle of time in the far reaches of our solar system and beyond. Does it exist? I do believe it ceases to exist. But at that time, the Draco had this was a galactic slave trade hub out there, huge trading zone. And of course, the Draco Empire was honchoing that. And they were also in control of a portal at the center of the planet, and very potent. And whoever controls the portal, whether it's light forces or dark forces, that's a complete, it's a huge asset. So wonderful. And we were also protecting a large Draco mothership. I don't have a lot of memory of being on the planet. I remember being in the atmosphere around it. And that Draco mothership, I need to make a painting of it. It's black and it has a lot of kind of angular, almost, I want to say like parapets. I don't have the right words for this. I don't know how to describe it exactly. I could make pictures of it in my mind. I could paint them, I could draw them. In a sort of jaw that drops down. In all of our little singular patrol crafts, there were many of us would fly out of there for our shift and fly back into that mothership. So that's where we were staying, completely controlled by the Draco. And that Draco ship had some kind of, I want to say like is morphic field the right word, or an energy field around it that helped repel stuff, debris. It helped shield it, but yet we were still needed in case any incursions would come from adversaries, right? And it was programmable. That energy field that protected the ship was also programmable and alive, as was the craft I was piloting, was also very much alive. And it was interesting. I'm beginning to remember other beings, other people that I was with out there doing much the same work as myself. And at this point in my servitude, I was what many would call a super soldier. I call it a Delta combat slave, really. And I was a cyborg and a clone. So in many ways, I'm a partially artificial being. I mean, I'm chemically, biologically, and electronically enhanced, psychically enhanced at this point, after all the build outs they did back on Mars, and they traded me out to the Draco. The craft, it's like you are wed with the craft, nobody else uses your craft. And it's like a call and response relationship with that craft. No one else touches your craft. It's interesting. It's really, really interesting how personal that is. Yeah, I was pausing. I'll tell you about the Pigman in a minute, because he was one of our, I remember being trained by him. He was a supervisor and a superior, also owned by the Draco. But what else do I want to say about the little tidbits? The living essence of a craft is, it's so, in a way, it's very elegant to it's so different than how we conceive of a car, a plane, a train, a hunk of metal. This is so not that. And this craft, I think I made this analogy previous, that it reminded me of like a manta ray with these kind of, this feeling of undulating wings off to the side, somewhat triangular, but sleek, black. I have no idea how we were functioning with that level of, I can only imagine, horrific cold at that extreme end of the far solar system, right? Like, I don't know. Questions yet to be answered. Does anyone know? Lots of things like that, the little details. I do remember, and I said this recently in an interview, it's very strange, like holographic food. Okay, so the Draco are masters of rendering holographic realities, holographic experiences, virtual realities, masters with a look of their, just your mind. I was mind melded with them 24/7. There's never a moment in which they don't know where you are, or what you're doing, or what you're thinking. Not one moment. Never. It's like you're telepathically wired into central command, and you're completely controlled, which takes being a slave to a whole new level. Like, your thoughts are not your own. And so if you ever meet a Draco, do not ever make eye contact with them. That's just a bad idea, because they'll send you straight into a dark realm with their minds, into a holographic reality. And it's almost like we had some kind of diversion when we were not on our shift that was like a holographic experience that we could, almost like watching TV, only better, because it's very viscerally experiential. If it was favorable and pleasurable, I remember lush living worlds and kind of, I say, like heavenly realms. They're fake. So, and the Draco it was a system of punishment and reward. So if we did good, if we were excelling at, fulfilling our commands and not fucking up, it could bring us pleasure. And if we were screwing up, not fulfilling their wishes, the whims of the Draco, which were changing from moment to moment to moment, very, what's the word? I can't think of it, like fickle. Yeah. They'd send you right into a hell realm. And they only had to do it. I mean, the technology in their minds, the tech, the upper dimensional, I don't mean light aligned upper dimensional, but the advancement and the intelligence behind all of this that they all had. It's kind of mind blowing. And in a way, it's if I can divorce myself from all of what's going on for me out there, it's from a sort of objective perspective. It's really quite fascinating. So maybe that's where I am in the journey with it, is like relating maybe a little bit less with the shocking nature of it all and the fucked upness of it, and more like, wow, I kind of learned a lot out there. I mean, that was quite an experience. So, and I mean, there's a funny thing. I don't know why. You got to wonder, and I do, why some memories come up and others don't. So I do recall, and when this came in, I was like, what is this? I remember eating holographic burgers with lettuce, pickle, and onion. And that for some reason, the lettuce, pickle, and onion would make me sleepy, and I would just like conk out, and I would get in trouble because I would not show up for what I was supposed to be doing. And I don't think, if we think about what would a cyborg clone weaponized being like myself out there, and that's weird every time I say that, like, am I in a sci-fi book? It kind of feels like it. What did we need? Like, biologically, we were different. I don't think our biological needs were the same, and nor would they have been at this point on the outer reaches of the solar system been the same. So again, another just interesting nuts and bolts kind of questions that I continue to be attuned with, yeah, a lot of flotsam and jetsam. But the cool thing is starting to remember singular people that I interacted with, and some of them are actually favorable, which is helpful because so many of the experiences that I had here and elsewhere were not favorable. They were dark and horrible. If you listen to the thing with Dean and the twinning a couple videos ago, man, that was dark and desperate. That was horrible. So back to the Pigman. I only know to call him this. I don't necessarily know a proper name for him as yet, but I call him that because, let me back up and say, there are a lot of us doing the same job, basically the same job, much like myself, but not all of them had come from Earth as hybridized beings, clone, cyborg, whatever. Myself as a cybernetic human. He was a hybrid of some kind. He seemed to be like, his legs were seemed to be like Draco muscular, very strong legs and feet. Seemed to be part Draco, and then his head was kind of pig-like. A very weird thing. Like, what is this coming from? And his body had almost like I suppose my frame of reference, Earth frame of reference, would be like the carapace of a turtle on its underside with that. It was a maroonish kind of armor that was built into his body. It wasn't a separate kind of thing. It was him. And then his lighter skin on his arms, and of course the face. And his hands and face would shift a little bit to light blues and light greens depending on his mood or his intention. Kind of interesting. So these little nuances are very kind of fascinating to me. And it's another painting. I want to make a series, body of work about all this, but it's going to take me so long, given that I work full time doing something else. Now I don't do studio work full time, but it does need to be in the works. But with him, the beautiful part is, even though he was part Draco, he was an underlord, underling, I guess, of the Draco, superior to many of us, though, in that he trained us and kind of got us where we needed to be. And so weren't necessarily always interfacing with the Draco. That would have been really hard on a day-to-day basis to wake up and have to go work with that kind of energy. Just like freeze you right in your tracks. Yeah, he's come back as an ally, and always felt that he had my back, even though, I never felt like I was really getting in trouble with him, but more that he was a friend of mine. And what kind of mind-blowing thing came in, there's this, yeah, I was going to read something. Something came in just a couple of weeks ago, and I was kind of shocked because I was like not expecting him to talk to me. And this again happened late at night before bed. I have a perennial problem with trying to get to bed like before midnight, and it's when the other world comes alive for me, and I can see and hear and know things beyond the din of the everyday world. Okay, February 22nd. So this is him. I felt his energy really strongly this evening. And this is what I wrote and transcribed. And this is like, gives us a little window on all of this that I'm still kind of scratching my head about. Right before bed, I receive a surprising message from Pigman. He says, "I miss you. We are in different worlds now. Discrepancies abound." I feel and see him in a rotating, revolving experience, like a feedback loop that keeps replaying. I am not free, nor are you. Our worlds and identities were corrupted. It is more complicated than it seems. The shallow and the deep have collided, winning and losing. We are losing steam. I can tell that in this, something for both of us is redeemed, though. He was, despite being my superior, an enslaved servant to the Draco Empire and its contrivances. And he ends with, again, I miss you. We are in different worlds now, but still we communicate. So it's kind of almost an analog of a lot of human feeling. Doesn't that change the experience? Suddenly there's something we recognize in this, the human sentient sort of longing, missing, hello, how are you, interchange. It's no longer this sterile kind of master-slave, cold-blooded warfare thing that's going on. There's sentience inside of here. And so we have to wonder what else is going on with Pigman. But it's also beautiful to just have this feeling of an ally way out there, kind of alone in this very strange, very alien environment with him. So I'm wondering how this might unfold. And in any case, I'm just kind of glad to hear from him. You know, I think was it the last video I said, I was curious how it had turned out for that reptilian group on Mars, the Mars natives that had lived underground, and they picked me up. And I was like, how did they make out? Like, did they survive? You know? Anyway, I think that, yeah, that must have been the last video. Yeah, a lot there. And I think that other, you know, the subject of singular beings, you know, remembering friends is like really healing for me. And so that's why maybe some of this is time for that to come in, because I've, you know, if you've watched this series, you know how much very, very dark, harrowing, terrifying, and highly degraded stuff that I've talked about. This is sort of like I don't know if we could quite go so far as to call it icing on the cake, but there's something redeeming. And interestingly too, I remember these, it's like, I remember sounds, like being out there and having these whooshing, like being out in the craft, and these long periods of like noise that I can't, like very subtle noise, and then these waves of sound that would come and go, and periods of chaos where there'd be like junk, like maneuvering through junk. I don't have good vocabulary around all this, but and then periods of deep calm punctuated by chaos, and just the kind of flux of the environment of space, and also the deep beauty. I mean, my God, if there's something that I've gotten from all this, it's being able to explore and recall that beauty. My God. Yeah, and I'm sure I've said this before too. It's like, I feel again and again when I look at the places on our planet that draw me, it's wide open, empty. Forgotten lands, badlands, Arctic tundra, glaciers. Those are the places that I have been and feel. In deep desert, big hoodoos and red rock country and all of that. Places are really inhospitable. Does that come from here? Programs? I'm curious. I think so. Oh, this might be kind of a short video. I hope not to disappoint you. Yeah. So, oh, I know what. Yeah. So I was going to just go answer one of the questions that I've gotten. I'm going to keep doing that over the next bit here with the Q&A. And I feel like it's a really salient question as we look around us. And I mean, in the time of right now, we've got like big war going on the planet and all kinds of, I mean, there's so much crisis from a certain vantage point, sure. Ashley says, and so well, beautifully, she says, why have these satanic humans been able to operate for so long? Hundreds of thousands of years, question mark? How on earth are these psychocorporate dictatorships been able to run us for so long? Alex Collier says, we consented, but how? Great question, Ashley. The question of our times. Thank you. Oh, yeah. I don't know if I have the ultimate definitive answer for that, but I would say, and what has come in, because I had asked that question, I think, too, to my own self, like, huh? Like, for so long, exactly. I really feel and have seen that it's when we started to worship external gods, generally speaking, as humans, that we became separated from our own divinity, and thus we became controllable. I may have said this in other videos, but it bears repeating, really. I think that was the beginning of the end. We became operable. We became debt slaves. We began to think our spiritual nature was maybe found in external deities and not here, not here. Yeah, and also, I mean, we've been tricked and lied to and fucked with in so many ways. I mean, that's also part of it. And, you know, if we get also locked into a material kind of paradigm where we have forgotten our spiritual nature, that seems to be the case for many people on the planet. We forget we can go inward and regain what's all there inside of us, and it takes our developing our spiritual nature again and being in touch with that and becoming seated within our divinity and the sacred nature of our own existence. There's where we reclaim our power, and it has to do, I'm always going to say it has to do with the development of human consciousness. So it's a great question, though, and one we could really dig into for a long time. And it's one I think a lot of people have asked themselves, you know, in the quiet domicile of maybe your own late or perhaps dark nights, asking why. But maybe, like I said at the beginning of all of this, we're, you know, like my small offering to, you know, the greater good, maybe, and telling my truth publicly, is that more and more of us, I do believe, are waking up. And when that happens, these kind of desperate moves start playing out, you know, the whole pandemic and so on and so forth. So many things. I've been in this personal quandary of like, I'm just, you know, I'm self-employed, I make good money, and I pay taxes. And I'm like, this can't go on, because I feel like I'm selling my soul to the system that corrupted me and destroyed my life in many ways. I can't continue doing this. So I'm interested to see how, you know, what cards I'm going to play out on this. But we come back into our own self-authority more and more and more as time goes on, and we start to trust ourselves and believe ourselves. You know, when that the God outside, that thing all happened, it's almost like we developed this relationship with ourselves as children, the external, you know, parents, like, what do we do now? Like, always looking for help and letting other people guide us. I'm not saying that that's what, you know, we're necessarily doing intentionally now at all, but sort of we've been ingrained, you know, like, take my hand and show me because I'm stupid and I'll just be a slave. You know, not needing the parental guidance anymore. We're grown-ups, and we came here as fully whole humans, and so much more than that, as light creatures in visceral form here on Earth. There's so much potential still within us and still really unfolding. So I have blessed hope for us. Keep developing your minds and your hearts. So, Ashley, thanks for the question. And I will go into the last bit of this segment today is about, I wanted to talk about light, healing. My mother and father from the Crow tribe, you know, my lifetime with them in the 1800s, you know, I was doing an interview with Marianne, I don't know, a few weeks ago. She opened the interview with saying, you know, I've read about them on your website. Tell me about that. And I was like, I love that. Thank you for that question. Because usually we go in to, you know, the deep, dark caverns of the programs, which is fine. We need to talk about that too. But I found this really a precious portal through which to start the conversation. You can also find, did I say Marianne? It's Emery. Excuse me if I flip-flop that. That video is in the playlist. There's a playlist of my interviews here on YouTube. You can find it. Yeah, so I've talked about them on and off, but I wanted to add, and talking about the humans who keep showing up, the beings who are allies. I want to bring another one in and share him today. But let me give the context here. If you don't know, my mother and father, I just call them that. They showed up a couple years ago. They're parents from a lifetime I had with the Crow people. And I first met the lifetime of Bodhana in 2016, Native woman who died young at the hands of white men. She was impregnated and left to, she died of starvation and exposure. And this would have been in what we now call, you know, the area around, you know, well, now the Crow tribe exists in Montana only, I believe, but it was well beyond that range during this time. And mother and father brought me everything, her parents, my parents, and her, you know, coming back into relationship with that lifetime. She's brought me wisdom and strength and how to be still, how to listen to the land, how to read the wind and the weather, how to read the water, and how to make offerings, and to come back into the sacred nature of my own life. And every morning when I get up, the first thing I do is say, Mother and Father, please be with me. And I make a water and a fire offering and bow into the four directions. And I know it's Bodhana who has guided me to that. Really precious. I mean, it's like reading the new day with this new pregnant potential of sacredness and sovereignty and stability, grace. I couldn't ask for more, really. They've healed me a lot. And they, you know, when I had one of these moments where I was like, okay, so where were you when that happened with the white people were coming, they were coming. And I asked what happened to mother and father, why didn't they come for me? Why couldn't anyone help me? And I was shown fever. They had fever. And I was like, what, they both died of fever? And I had to, oh my God, it was smallpox. They both died of smallpox. I had to do a little research because I had to corroborate it with what I was getting psychically. It's exactly what happened. They couldn't come because they passed away. Yeah. So much tragedy, but you see the gift of past lives too. And if anybody wants to book a past life reading, do that on my website, because I think it can bring in a lot of gifts and a lot of healing for us and retrieving things that we need really right now at this point on the journey home for all of us. So the new player, and this is, yeah. Oh, my son. Yeah. So this was this past summer, so summer 2021. And the tribe people always come in when I'm out in the woods, walking in the watershed. That's when I see them most clearly. I had seen for some days in a row, I was surrounded by old family and friends from the Crow tribe. And I was like, oh, this is so awesome. And then there was this boy, taller than the rest, who I kind of kept seeing him there. And who is he? Who is he? So familiar. I know him. Of course I know him, you know, right? But out in the woods one morning. I was walking along the creek, and he came up and he put a little purple flower inside my hand, and I just looked at him. I started crying. And it was my son. It was like, this is shifting timelines. This is like, I didn't know I was going to get so emotional in a good way. Like he didn't get to be born then because I died. But it's like we fulfilled that promise. And he's in his young, like early 20s. And he's very tall. He's half white. But it's healing something for all of us. And he wears a deerskin kind of, it's like a long, it's like a long smock shirt. It's modest, you know, it does seem to have some beadwork on it, but it's really soft. It has a little collar up here. But he's always so happy-go-lucky, and he's so like happy to see me, and like a mother's most highest joy, you know, like, oh, how did this happen? And I call him, you guys are gonna laugh. I call him Violet because of the flower he gave me when he met me. Yeah. And I always greet him. I greet mother and father and Bodhana in the morning, and also my son Violet, who seems to be towering. I'm tall, and he's quite a bit taller than me. So yeah, what a story, right? But the point is, and oh wow, I feel him all around me. The point is that the other experiences we've had, parallel lives and past lives, and however we conceive it, drawing upon, there's so much there, infinitely resource to really find what we need. And it's all written inside of us in our cellular memory, our cellular code, and even in our DNA. They don't want us to know about that. You know, we're born, we live, meat suit reality, and we pay taxes and we die. Yeah, we're debt slaves. No, I don't think so. So I know a lot of you listening have probably had memories of past life blips, maybe full-on experiences, and you know, sometimes they're painful, but they can also bring in so much light and so much healing. So I did want to share that, kind of as we were on the topic of, you know, talking about the Pigman and other beings who have been supportive on the path. And I feel really like the deeper I go into this, like the deeper I mine the memories and move toward knowing everything that happened. And it takes a long time. I mean, think if you just suddenly forgot the last 20 years of your life and you were starting to get it back, it would take you a really long time if you'd been totally wiped of everything. And so there's help along the way. There's help. And that's what I have. You know, I may want for physical companionship or, you know, real people, warm-blooded people. But lucky for me, I see into other realms, and I know there's benevolence and love there. So, and it helps heal my heart from all of the, I mean, if we go back to my natal family and we talk about all the inversions there, the template for love and safety and nurturing with other people was totally destroyed. So this is also part and parcel of making that right again. And it's a slow journey, but I'm on it. So, yeah. Oh, okay. Pausing there. Is there anything else? Yeah. Dedicating the merit of our time together, the journey today. I think it's been a short one for me, for us here. Usually I'm talking forever. Just dedicating the merit of that to anybody who's anywhere in our world or any worlds that is feeling alone or troubled, lacking in support or struggling to survive maybe. I mean, there's a lot of people on our planet right now who are, you know, we're worried about just surviving. We're all survivors of some kind of tragedy here. Sometimes it seems to me. So thank you for your good work, and sign off with that. And don't forget to, book a session with me if you're looking for some support on the way. And thanks for being with me. Signing off, Series Blue.